Welcome back to the Neshoba Valley Chamber Business Buzz. My name is Melissa Fedoroff. I'm president and CEO of the Neshoba Valley Chamber. Super excited to be here with John from Zogo Entertainment Corp today. John, so I've had the opportunity to know you for many years.
Yes.
From your former role, one of your former roles, where you were the president of the Middlesex West Chamber of Commerce. And so we had a great partnership, worked together on a few different things over the years. I thank you for your leadership in that organization. And so I'm super excited it's great to see you now doing something a little different.
Yeah, and it's fun to, now here I am with Neshoba Valley Chamber as a business member and a guest now, so it's kind of, now it burdens on you. You can be the leader.
Well, I'm happy to take that burden. So tell us a little bit about Zogo Entertainment. Like, how'd this start?
All right, so Zogo started. I just shortened it to Zogo because it's easier. It actually kind of started in the early 90s. It became incorporated in 1995, November actually. And it was because I had gotten heavily involved in the music business industry primarily surrounding Charleston, South Carolina. And I was actually starting to put out albums on a record label. And actually, here we go. This is the only one that ever I saw a royalty check from.
Wow.
Band called Thorn Oil. But part of getting incorporated was for the protection aspects of, doing record labels and all that sort of stuff. And they were signed on with ASCAP, which was the royalty collection thing. And that's basically where the royalties came from, because they were nationally released and actually into Canada as well. And they ended up doing pretty well. They were getting airplay on about 90 stations across the country in Canada, primarily alternative and collegiate, but it all, floats into the system and the royalty pot and all that. They broke up not too long after I had produced the album, so I ended up with 10,000 copies and not really having a band to produce that or promote that. So they are sitting around, and here, you can actually have that one. Kind of an alternative sound, and but one of the many bands I was working with in Charleston.
I don't have a CD player anymore, but I bet I could get one.
I could find one for you. I sell those too. So
I knew that.
And it was, and I did that for many years. I had been brought into the fold doing various productions. I had done everything from, during my college years. Well, actually, before college even, I was producing shows and bands and all that. And then I got bigger and bigger. Largest one I ever did was a Bob Hope show.
That's really cool.
Him and Dolores. And,
wow.
they came out to do as a big fundraiser for Save the Yorktown down in Charleston, which is a big aircraft carrier. And that was very fun and exciting. He actually was a genuinely great guy. And Dolores was very sweet as well, and kind of became friends with the family and that sort of stuff. My dad was Navy, so that's kind of how all that connection started. But and that was about the point where I was doing a lot with the band stuff, and so it was growing. And that continued for quite a while. Actually up through 2014, 2015, I'd worked with a lot of bands. I was doing a lot of youth work at the time, and so I just started recording a lot of them as well. But I've been doing that the entire time. So I actually don't know how many albums I've recorded or live shows, not only recorded, but, just produced in general or engineered or what have you. How this stuff came in, I joined eBay back in 99. So I'm one of the older ones on eBay. And I don't know what my member number is, but I think it's under the million mark, which means something on a platform with 130 million people on it. I had just intermittently sold stuff, stuff I didn't want anymore, or turned over a lot of music gear, whether it was guitars or amplifiers or processors for recording or something like that. And it was kind of my clearinghouse for like a garage sale, basically. And it's actually where I got a lot of stuff. I built a lot of things, studios with eBay gear. Used gear is fine, and a lot of times it's worth it to save. So it's I still do that. But why buy new all the time? There's definitely times, but used gear works great. But it wasn't until the pandemic that this really exploded for us, and I blame my wife for that. So she's the partner in this.
Okay.
The other president, I won't call her vice president, I get in trouble. uh, and she is basically a 90s to early 2000s toy expert. Through no lack of having enough children in the house, that we have all of this stuff. So we have 4 kids, and they've cycled through this. And during the pandemic, we were stuck inside. We were like, well, what do we do with all this? They're not playing with it anymore. And there was just tubs and tubs of this. So I'm like, well, why don't we try selling some of it on eBay? And my wife had found it was it's a little dragon from My Little Pony. So it was a little figure or something like that. And she looked it up, and the stupid thing was worth like $85. And she was like, what? Yeah, exactly. This little 2-inch figure, plastic, made in the early 90s or something. So we put it up there, and sure enough, it sold. And that was kind of the catalyst for her getting involved. So all of a sudden, all the toys were coming out, a lot of Beanie Boos, which I did not bring one of. But it just continued. And then, we started, it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, how do you argue that? What do you do for a living? I play with dolls, and I shouldn't do that. She's worth something. But and so that, and it kind of morphed into pop culture. So now, it could be any number of things that certainly toy related. That's our biggest, niche. And it doesn't matter what era. We do kind of stick to the, I'd say the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. But a lot of stuff comes in when you're getting bulk inventory from wherever you're getting it, comes in, and you just get your mishmash of whatever it is. And an example I'll bring up as we head into that. So like this one.
But it's not from the 80s or 90s.
No, it is not. This is from 1962. The box
Wow.
is, falling apart a little bit. This is a bubble hair Barbie.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see her. I'm not going to take her out of the box. She's got her little shoes with her and all that. So the clothing might actually be what's the most valuable part of this. Her ears have turned green because she had earrings. They've been taken out since for the sake of preservation. And they just oxidize, and that's why they turn green. And we're not going to mess with that other than having taken the earrings out. You start getting into using a little alcohol cleaning stuff and all that, you can cause more damage. So we leave that to the seller. And there's a lot of people. I mean, the collection of any number of these is a huge audience, and there's a lot of people who will clean her up and make her worth it. She's worth about as she is about $120.
Wow.
Which is interesting. A lot of people think, oh, she's really old, she's going to be worth more. But something I learned with books is just because it's old doesn't mean it's valuable, and just because it's new doesn't mean it's not valuable. So as an equivalent, this is a 2009. She's worth about $120 as well.
Okay.
And she looks kind of average, but she's fully articulated, and so these are harder to find. They just didn't produce a whole lot of her, so all of her little limbs bend. As compared to any number of other kinds where the limbs don't, they get the arm bend and a leg bend, and that's about it. And she actually has some torso movement as well. So she just, happens to be worth the equivalent of that, and she's an example of a newer one. But it's really, I didn't know anything about dolls. I never wanted to know anything about dolls. But now I know a lot about dolls. You've got your Monster High, dolls, and they're worth a bit. Toralei here is, what's she worth? If I can find her on my list, this one's about $22. Which for a standard doll, but isn't bad. And we have hundreds of these.
Okay.
Right, not her specifically, but just and none of it's pretty rare. We come up, not rare, but we don't look for new ones. Because that's not really collectors. It can be collector's market, obviously new in box, and we'll get to Carol Burnett over here. But she's just interesting. And the Monster High line fluctuates a lot as far as collectability and value. But recently, in the past 2 years, they've kind of normalized them. So they made them look less monster and more human-like, and it's kind of boring. So people are looking for the older ones. There's ones we have that are like fluorescent green. We have this one here. This is Jennifer. Jennifer Long.
Okay.
She was part of the Fierce Rockers. So of course, cartoons are based around all this stuff. So she's worth about $70. Here, we'll
Wow.
pull her out real quick. But people really get into this market because of the look is a huge part of it. She's got the green hair going on. She's got the boots.
Yeah.
You can't. She's
She's
gonna.
got the scales.
Oh yeah.
She's got fish scales, it looks like.
So yes, she does, and I'm not sure what. So and they're all like the daughters of Frankenstein or something or
Okay.
some other
I
classic
didn't
monster.
get into this set, so
So they're it's just fun. And,
yeah.
It's amazing how many different kind of doll. All these lines of dolls. You got the OMG, LOL rockers. Right,
Oh
I'll leave
yeah.
her in here, and she's in a $20 range with her little cohort. But again, the hair.
Yeah.
And she's got this questionable outfit on, and they're selling these to kids. And the little LOLs, there's a whole series of these that they're all this tall, and they all look kind of like babies, and they're all anatomically correct. So if you have kids, and sometimes parents don't discover this until their kids are like pulling their little thing, and then it's like, oh, what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, it's kind of entertaining. This is a Bratz doll, and I brought her. This one's worth even in her condition. So none of the clothes. She doesn't have her little boots. Her hair has been cut, and she's worth about $70 as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Okay.
she's entertaining because did you see the Barbie movie?
Yes.
Okay. You know the girl Sasha,
I don't remember which one, but
the teenager that was kind of the
yes.
protagonist. Yeah. Well, this is Sasha.
Okay.
Mattel makes both of these, Barbie and Sasha. Bratz is a lot brattier
Yeah.
and punky and was giving, and that's why she made it into the movie because when Barbie first shows up to it was like in the cafeteria or outside or whatever, they were a picnic table or something,
Yeah.
and there's the four like teenage girls sitting around. They were all Bratz dolls.
Oh.
So that was Sasha. That was the
Aha.
main problem for Barbie in the movie. And it's just funny to see Easter eggs like that.
Yep.
You've got this is Ever After is a whole series of dolls, and they're based on like nursery rhymes and all that sort of stuff. This happens to be a Legacy Day Raven, and I have no idea what
Okay.
nursery rhyme she was after. And then the boy dolls actually can often be worth a lot more because they just don't make as many of them.
Yeah.
Is a big part of it. The Monster High boys we can't really keep in stock. I didn't even have one to bring. They're often in the $30 to $40 range. You have to remember that all of these originally cost anywhere between $9.99 and like maybe $18. So that's where the collectability comes in. And when we get them, we're getting them in piles. It's like I think one of our first big lots we bought, it was over 100 pounds of Barbies. And when you think about the fact that they weigh about 4 ounces each, we had
a lot of Barbie.
5 of these. Yeah, FedEx showed up. They're launching these boxes out of the back of the truck, and they were I think they were like 30 by 20 by 20 actually, and they were just stuffed. And that it's like $600 for us to get that. And it's kind of like treasure hunting. You're looking for the one in there, and that one had the one in there. It was actually the most expensive one we've had. She was either early 60s or late 50s Barbie, color me hair or something like that. Very different face. I don't even have a picture of it. Somewhere it's lost on the internet, but and that was a $600 doll.
Wow.
So that was the one in there. So anything, and that one's within a week was gone. Not new in box or anything else like that. But besides that, we do stuffies. This is a $150 Five Nights at Freddy, Twisted, whatever this one's name is, stuffy.
Oh my.
This was our daughter's, but she was, had a little bit of OCD and stuff, so they never did anything except sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
But you'll see these show up, anywhere from yard sales to Goodwill, Savers, or whatever. we spend most of our time at Goodwill. They have it's kind of like the clearance dump. I forget what they call it, but basically all of New England, if they don't sell them in the stores, they put it on trucks and they ship it to up in Hudson, New Hampshire. And it's literally, it's not quite the size of a football field, but you have about 80 of these 8x4 tub things that come out on wheels, and they're about maybe 18 inches deep, and they're just loaded. Like, they're just dumping. They didn't even bother to open a lot of the boxes. People pull them apart and all that. So we'll find a lot of inventory there. We do look at Marketplace. We're looking for bigger lots. We recently got a Barbie lot. We didn't need any Barbie, but when somebody was selling, a trunk load of stuff for like $250, it's like, and they had their own podcast where they had been doing, Barbie stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, here's this one with this clothes, and I think they acted out and everything else. It was interesting. But it was like, all right, so that one, the big thing coming out of that is all the clothing. They had all the separated clothing and all those little, pieces wearing, there are people who have the doll and are desperate to get a hold of the, whatever she's wearing kind of thing.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it just, it just goes on and on. Then I was down there looking at our bins this morning, trying to decide what to bring for show and tell here. And, then you're into the ever after, and then you got the Equestria dolls, which are all based on My Little Pony. And then Cassie, in a way, was like, you're going to take the little, she has another My Little Pony from the 80s. It's some ugly looking thing stuffed into like a mermaid outfit, and it's worth like $100 or something and all that. So
crazy.
Yeah, I'm just babbling on.
So you never, the point is that you never know what it's.
Yes.
What
so
the
don't
value is.
Throw them out.
Yeah.
We had my wife wanted a custom made shirt for George, our youngest daughter, and she had gotten somebody in Shirley, I think they are, in with their one of those cricket things. Well, she went over there to pick it up, and they got talking about this stuff, and the one was like, well, I just I didn't know Monster High dolls were worth anything. We just threw a whole bunch out, right? So she had taken a pile of about 30 of them and thrown them in their dumpster, and my wife's like, because some of them, the valuable ones tend to sell quickly. Like really, because that's why they're valuable. People are looking for them. But they have one she's a Cyclops. She's green and she's got one eyeball in the middle of her, and $100 easily for her. But you can't find her, and that's part of the point.
Yeah.
So when you do, but I think the woman had thrown one of them out.
Oh my.
So it kind of made us,
yeah,
cry a little.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And just because she's up here, Carol Burnett, right? So this was a Barbie 50th anniversary production. But there she is from the Gone with the Wind episode.
So cool.
With the curtain on and all this sort of stuff. I forget what we have. We have her. So she's worth. We have her at 83, or I think that's like 82.50 or something.
Yeah.
We used various markets as well. It's not just eBay. There's Macari. There's another decently big one. Poshmark. We sell some of this on Poshmark. Okay. It's not all about clothes and everything.
Oh, I thought Poshmark. That's what I thought Poshmark was just clothes. But,
but you can pretty much put anything up there. We try to keep it, within what the fashion sensibilities would be. But for the more expensive items, we'll cross them over so there's more eyes landing on them.
Yeah. What was your one favorite piece? Do you have a favorite, like most memorable piece that you've bought and sold?
That Barbie for $600 certainly sits in the brain. Probably we get a lot of toner and Madame Alexander dolls as well. And if you're into high fashion dolls, those are the big names there, and they're generally worth. I think the least expensive one we've ever had was probably in the $70 range. If you have them currently now, they all the way up to like $300 for one of those. Wow. But they're very memorable because they're very detailed. And I didn't bring one because she's locked in her little cabinet and all that kind of thing. But the detail on them and the painting of the face and everything else, it gets to know a lot of these. How the face is done is a big part of it. One of the more interesting stories, this was earlier on, before my wife came into the picture, was I had been, so we used to live in Boxborough, and I was at the transfer station, our stuff, and I'm gonna smack the poor microphone, but I was driving out, and they had an area where, you could just kind of put stuff. And I've tried to avoid grabbing too much from there. But I'm driving by and I'm looking at these old speakers and I'm like, wow, look at those old buggers. And I saw the little logo on the front. One of them had the logo. It's about this big on the front of this, one of these old,
Yeah.
20-inch speaker thing, wooden cabinet, out of the 70s. And I was like, is that an acoustic research? Right. So this is where my knowledge of, music gear stuff comes in. And it was an AR. And I jumped out and I threw them in the truck. Well, I ended up selling those for $1,000. So off the street kind of thing, right?
Wow.
This is what you're gonna throw stuff out when it's on you.
Yeah.
But I don't go around picking trash. I don't go around a neighborhood looking for stuff. But this was a drive-by, and I ended up going to it was his name was Emmanuel, and he was the guy who makes the flutes for the Boston Symphony Orchestra. So he got these, bought them on eBay, and he said, well, can you deliver them to me? I'm up in, he was the north area of Boston. And I said, sure, if you're going to buy, $1,000 speakers from me, I'll deliver them to you. And I'd gone through them to make sure they kind of worked and all that, and they weren't fully even functional. And I told him that, and, that was in the listing. I drove over there and, knock on the door, and I think it was his girlfriend. She opened his door. I said, I'm here with the speakers, and she literally did one of these, rolled her eyes, walked off, and it's like a French accent or something. Emmanuel, you speakers. Yes. I'm like, great. So he brought me in and all that, and he had all these like really high-end speakers and stuff. And then he showed me his flute shop. It was in his house, and I guess the basement, if you want to call it that, because it was brighter than this room. And that's where he made the flutes and stuff. And a very nice house. He wasn't hurting, especially if he's buying $1,000 speakers, I guess. And then we took, and then he's showing me his turntables and his records, and we got to, so I was over there for a couple of hours. And that's probably my most memorable sale because of the story, following it. But again, it's an example of, you never know what.
You never know.
Most stuff is kind of junk, but, there's those little diamonds in the rough that come popping out on occasion.
So if somebody wants to check out your inventory, where do they go?
If you just go to eBay and you look for stores, so usually it's like / and an STR and then / again, and it's Zogo Music. So ZOGOMUSIC. That gets you to that primary store. And we use the same name throughout the platform. So it's Poshmark. It's going to be, Zogo Music on there. And maybe it's Zogo I think it's Zogo on Poshmark. There's something about they wouldn't let me use the original name or something like that. Macari, it's Zogo Music. It's all pretty much the same things. They're going to be least expensive on eBay because of how the other platforms process fees and other things. So, they're generally a couple bucks more. I don't announce that, but I just did.
We just did.
So, eBay is the easy route. And, you can do the cost comparison with other ones, I guess. If you can find them, darn it.
Well, this is very cool. And so I highly encourage folks to check it out. Go to eBay. Don't even bother with the other ones then.
Yeah, just strictly eBay.
Check it out. And bottom line is, don't throw anything away. But when you're ready, reach out to John and
yes, you can do that. So if you're like real estate agent, it's time to clear the house or something.
Yeah.
If you're seeing stuff that looks like this, we'd be interested.
Perfect.
So
and so how do people get a hold of you?
Good question. Well, they can do that through the chamber because the email is on, we're listed as a member. Yeah. But it's basically zogomusic@gmail.com.
Perfect.
That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us about what you do. I'm gonna definitely have to go check out my my she shed and see what I've got. See if I've got anything that I can send your way.
Awesome.
Thanks
you so for having me on.
This was great.
It's been a blast, and I know I just babbled on, but
it was fun. This was
right.
This was
fun.
To do
something a little different. So.
Totally different. So awesome. Thank you for tuning in, and special thanks, of course, to AJ from Clear Signal Productions, our podcast producer, for making today's episode possible. Have a great day, everybody.